the beginning of that gospel, we hear Jesus leaving the synagogue, so we know that for sure he was often there to pray and worship. And then he goes out, though. He doesn't stay in there. He leaves, and he brings the mission of bringing that good news to the nations, and begins at Simon's house. And this is where Jesus would cure his mother-in-law, Simon's mother-in-law, from her fever. And then others are brought to Jesus. And Jesus eventually has to go away to a quiet place to pray. But Peter finds him and says, "Everyone is looking for you." And Jesus replies that he needs to get up and go into other towns and villages. And he explains it very beautifully when he says, "For this purpose have I come." What strikes me about this is that Christ's work begins in a house of worship. And he clearly exercises his ministry there, but it doesn't stop there. It continues and is carried out and made real in the world. His great purpose is fulfilled outside the synagogue walls, in places where the lepers, the lame, the sick, the possessed can come to him. He goes out to meet them where they are, and they go to meet him where they can find him. It's a significant detail, but what was true in Capernaum 2,000 years ago is still true around the world today. The great work of Christianity happens in homes, on street corners. It unfolds on bread lines and soup kitchens, in shelters, in school classrooms. It's made known around the dining room table, in offices, in stores. What we do here within these walls, of course, is invaluable and supremely important. Here, together as a family, we worship. We receive the Eucharist. We hear the gospel message proclaimed, yes. But this is only the beginning. Out there, out of these doors, is where it lives and grows and spreads. See, the gospel doesn't do any of us good if we simply treat it as a book, like any other book. It just stays here on the altar that deacon carries around sometimes. It's meaningless if we leave it here inside this church, right? It needs to be carried from here in our hearts, in our lives. It needs to be taken into the world the way that Jesus did it. Because there are those who are sick, who are possessed, who need to be healed and freed. They may be sick of heart or possessed by loneliness. They may carry a leprosy that eats away at their self-worth. They may be shunned or ignored. We can be Christ to them. I was up northwest, Columbus here, and I saw this Korean restaurant, and I said, well, I'm going to try that. I like to go to these little places, little family-run restaurants, try something different. So I went in there and started to eat, and I ordered my soup, and the waitress said, do you realize what that is? And I said, yeah, it's oxtail soup. I think she was surprised that I wanted that, but anyway. And I ate it, and it was delicious. I was done with my meal, ready to leave, and this gentleman, Korean gentleman, says, Father, I got your check. And I said, cha-ching. That's why I wear my collar in restaurants. Anyway, no. Let me tell you, in Italy, it's even better. But, that encounter there, because God moved me to be there, moved him to be there. He was a hurting individual. He was really hurting inside. His mom, he had brought his mom. They came from Dayton to go to that Korean restaurant because it was good. But he explained to me, his son had just been in a car accident. He was in the ICU. His brother was an alcoholic, struggling immensely. His mom, dialysis 3 times a week. He was suffering. And God put us together that day. And he paid for my meal, and he said, Father, I'm a factory worker. My dad was a factory worker. But I wanted to pay for you. Sometimes you got to let him do that, you know. But we had a prayer together, and it was like, this is how he is being Christ to me right now. He showed me true humility and prayer and joy, even in the face of struggle. He was joyful. An amazing man. And hopefully, I could be some consolation to him. We need to bring Christ to people outside of these walls. There's a lot of hurting people. We need to be Christ. So we can participate in this mission that Jesus has. You know, someone once said, the only edition of the Gospels most people will see is you. The synagogue in this Gospel is mentioned twice, at the beginning and at the end. So we begin with Christ leaving the synagogue, but we conclude with him going into one in other towns and villages as he continues his mission. See, a life of prayer and worship gives us guidance and strength to go out to encounter our brothers and sisters who need to see Christ in us. At the end of the Mass, the deacon will say those familiar words, go and announce the gospel of the Lord. We hear it often, don't we? Every week. And let's be honest, by that point in the Mass, some people are already out in the parking lot. But anyway, okay. But this time, listen to those words and ask ourselves, how are we doing that? Going and announcing the gospel of the Lord. You know, every morning is a good gauge. Wake up. When you wake up, say, how can I bring Christ to somebody today? That will change your life. When you wake up, say, how can I bring Christ to somebody today? Because that's your mission. And that will change throughout your day, your whole motivation. When normally you see that annoying coworker and you're saying, I got to go this way. Maybe say, I do go that way. And I ask that person, what can I pray for you for? You see how it changes the mindset? How can I bring somebody to Christ today? How I love the Lord. So that's our challenge, my dear brothers and sisters. Because for that purpose have we come.